Yo, got some pretty crazy news during the 1.1 patch notes, and I think a lot of people actually missed this, so I kind of wanted to talk about it a little bit in its own separate video because it's crazy. A bunch of characters basically just got indirectly buffed as a result of one of Hoyo's decisions. With the release of Silverwolf, they made a change to the game that actually indirectly affects a ton of other characters, and it's kind of crazy. Now, first, please forgive me for not making this a super crazy edited video. I really like doing all of like the super well edited stuff, but I'm going out of town for a few days and I'm not gonna really have time to do it, but I really want to talk about this stuff. So you'll probably see a couple of videos like this sprinkled throughout the channel even. It's just whenever I don't have a lot of time, but I want to talk about something. So anyways, check this out. So Silverwolf is a character that basically wanted a bunch of effect hit rate. And when I made my guide for the character, when I was talking about like how good she was going to be and like what specifically she needed for her best build, I was talking about how much effect hit rate she would need to be able to always land her skill. For those of you who don't know, basically her skill has a base chance to hit at level 6, it's 80% base chance. And then you also, like when you level it up, you get some like damage increases, you get all type resistance, shred, etc., etc. You have a 92% base chance at talent level 6 for your ultimate to hit, 66% base chance at talent level 6 for bugs to be implanted. So basically, with all these things in mind, the most important thing for Silverwolf is implanting the weakness. The weakness is really what sets her apart from all of the rest of the characters. So many people are talking about how like, oh, Pela's like just as good as Silverwolf. All you have to do is you know, shred some defense and you're all good to go. That's not actually true. And I have another video coming out about that entirely, comparing some characters with Silverwolf in the team instead of Pela, Silverwolf in the team instead of Ting and Bronya, etc., etc. But right now, the important thing is that Silverwolf needs to hit her skill. She needs that base chance to always go through. And if you weren't aware, enemies in the game have an inherent effect resistance, the same way they also have elemental resistances depending on if they have the weakness to it or not. So for some of these characters, for some of these enemies, when you get to higher level Memory of Chaos, you actually tend to find that a lot of the enemies have really high resistances. I haven't actually gone and cleared any of the Memory of Chaos yet on this account, so that's why it looks like this. But as you can see, once you get up to these higher level enemies, it doesn't actually tell you that they have effect resistance. But as you go higher and higher and higher and you get to the higher level enemies, eventually you'll see like a level 80 Bronya fight. And there's so much more, and you'll see if you just go look up, and you'll see if you look for it. But basically these characters, as they get to be a higher level, they get more innate effect resistance. Now the way effect resistance works is the more of it an enemy has, the more effect hit rate you have to have. But the way it was before is the highest effect resistance an enemy would have is 50% effect resistance. And this kind of scaled with their level, but I would imagine that for some fights in particular, they add a specific effect resistance to it just to make it a little bit more challenging. But right now, this seems to scale with level post level 50. You can really feel it if you don't run effect hit on your characters, that they'll just resist some of the effects that you mean to put on them. Defense, shred, slow from Welt, etc., etc. Well, in this case, in the case of Memory of Chaos, once you do get over to level 10, it used to be that it could get up to 50%. 50% effect resistance was a lot. I don't mean to whip out the spreadsheet, but give me a second. So if you watch my Silverwolf video, you could see this chart at some point where it's basically skill probability to hit based on trace level 8. On the left is your effect hit rate, and on the right is the boss's effect resistance. Now, right now, it's 40%, but this used to be 50%. When Hoyoverse released 1.1, they dropped a huge change on us, where basically the highest you would see was 50% initially, now has been tuned down to 40%. 40% is a lot less. To give you some context as to how much this affects Silverwolf, let's look at this column right here. Right now, the one that's highlighted in green. If I go ahead and this is 85% effect hit rate with 40% effect resistance on the boss. And as you can see, you have over a 90% chance of getting your skill effect to work and implanting a weakness on an enemy right off the bat with 85% effect resistance. However, if I change that, I'm gonna go up here and change this. 50% effect resistance. Now you can see a bit of a difference. Now you're not likely to hit it until maybe your third go around. Your odds are 76% on the first one, which is, you know, actually still pretty likely. Like you will hit it, you know, 3 out of 4 times, but your odds of hitting it are drastically lowered, right? Initially with Silverwolf, if you wanted to be able to hit your skill 100% of the time at talent level 8, I mean, you probably could get it to level 10, it'd be a lot easier. You would need a ton of effect hit. Let's say change it to 120. Around 120 effect hit, you have 90% chance of landing that skill the first time you use it. So that would change this column to about 120% effect hit rate and 50% resistance. That hurts. That feels terrible, right? And it basically forced you on Silverwolf to run an effect hit rate chest piece because you needed to hit that skill. It's the most important part of her entire kit. And so if you didn't have effect hit rate, you couldn't deal with it. But now that this has been lowered to 40%, if you have 120% effect hit rate at 40% resistance, over 100% chance to hit. And in fact, you can go down to 100% and you still have a 99% chance, which is how we end up with the 85% effect hit rate being like pretty consistent because, as I said earlier, 85% effect hit rate against 40 effect resistance, around 91%. Anyway, so I don't like bringing out the spreadsheets all the time, but that was the best way I could describe it to you. Hoyo effectively nerfed bosses effect res. And also keep in mind that this 40% is like the absolute maximum they have, at least in the game right now, right? Most bosses aren't even gonna have 40% resistance. Most bosses might sit around between 20 and 30% resistance. Let's see 30%. 30%, 85 effect hit rate is more than enough. And if you find yourself in that situation where you're doing most of the content, that basically means you no longer need to run an effect hit rate body piece on Silverwolf. You can actually build her for her own personal damage. And that is the huge buff to all of the characters that were using effect hit rate previously. I always forget to ask people to subscribe during my videos. So here's a random cut that I had at the end of the video that I'm gonna throw in the middle. Subscribe! So let me show you more characters that changed as a result of this, because this is actually crazy. I've made 2 guides on characters that use effect hit rate or could use effect hit rate to be able to hit their skill or their ultimate effect 100% of the time. One of them is Pela. And now this may have felt a little bit of overkill because her base chance to hit is already 100%. So if the enemy has no effect resistance, then you're chilling already. But if they had like 20%, then you need like a little bit more effect hit rate to make that happen. Initially, I said just to be on the safer side, since her ultimate is one of the biggest parts of her kit and you need to make sure it hits all the time and her personal damage isn't that great, you can afford to go effect hit rate and it's fine. But now that we've seen this effect resistance nerf on bosses, you can actually run less effect hit rate on all of your effect hit rate characters. And so Pela can now be built for damage. You can now build Pela with attack or crit, speed boots, ice damage, and maybe energy regen. And she's able to deal like a solid chunk of your team's damage. It's not like super huge or anything. It's not going to be game changing, but that means that every Pela team you would have her in now does a little bit more damage because you don't need as much effect hit rate. And this also very much applies to Welt. You see, with Welt initially, you could make an argument for him needing effect hit rate at the highest level just because you want to make sure that you can hit your ultimate in prison. You want to make sure that you can slow down enemies. And honestly, he already has a really high chance to slow down because he has a base chance that he hits multiple times, right? So if you're against a boss, odds are you're going to hit this skill a lot of the time. Odds are that you're going to hit his ultimate a lot of the time too. But you can make the argument that against the hardest bosses in the game, you would need an effect hit rate body just to make sure, just to ensure that you have that in prison. Well, now because of that nerf, you basically need 20 to 40% less effect hit rate. I'm going to say 20% to be more conservative because that's what it actually usually ends up being. But some people are saying, well, it's, you know, half a body piece for effect hit rate. So like, let's just do away with it. And now Welt is like a unit that most of the time you're going to build crit on him. You could build crit on him before, but even in the highest level content, you can even argue to build crit on him now because that resistance is kind of gone. You could just run Pangalactic for the 10% extra effect hit rate, hopefully get some effect hit rate substats, and then your Welt is dealing a ton of damage now. And this basically just applies to any character that had any sort of effect with like a base chance to hit that was an important part of their kit. Mostly Nihility characters, but some characters that aren't Nihility as well got huge buffs as a result of that. And that's not even accounting for this insane light cone, which I think deserves its own video, quite frankly, because this is stupid overpowered, and I love it. I just want to make it clear, I love how good this is. Because for free-to-play players, you guys are eating so good with this light cone. Free 40% effect hit rate light cone. Before that, if you wanted effect hit rate on your light cone, you basically needed a gotcha cone. You needed like this 20% one, the sample one. And at S5, then you have 40%. Obviously, you have Void, but that's only for the first 3 turns. So this light cone being free just is a free S5 sample cone, but it's actually even better because your Nihility characters, I mean, there are ones that deal damage, of course, but whenever the wearer attacks defense reduce enemies, they get 8 energy back. That is crazy, by the way. I just want to make it clear how insane that is. After 3 basic attacks, you basically are getting another basic attack back worth of energy and a little bit more for free. So this is insane. You can use this on Welt when you're playing with Pela. Anyways, this video wasn't about the light cone. I'm gonna have another video on the light code. It's crazy. Anyways, if you guys want to read this stuff for yourself, this is basically what it says. Effect res of enemy targets above level 50 has been adjusted at a lower rate as the level increases. By the way, I don't have it confirmed that it's 40%. This is just what I've heard from a couple different sources, but it would make sense because it would make Silverwolf able to be built for damage a little bit more, just make the character a little bit better. And honestly, 50% effect resistance was pretty rough. I feel like they would want to save that for like a tougher boss down the line. So anyways, huge buffs for certain characters, and I'm really glad they did this. So let me know what you guys think of the changes down below. Let me know how you guys are enjoying Silverwolf if you got her, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya.